bring brand new content.
And so as far as that new content goes, what's next?
We got Soulstorm. It's not a remake, but it's inspired by Abe's Exodus. The short of it is this, is I wanted to retell that story because basically time, money, and business shaped it into something that was not the original vision of how Abe's quintology was going to unfold, which is why at the time I had this story about Soulstorm brew and addictions and this and that. Basically, Abe's Odyssey was a story about how the slaves wake up and free themselves of their oppressors. And Abe's Exodus was really going to be part 2 of that, which was, and then the slaves wake up to the fact that their own habits and addictions bring their own oppression.
Wow.
And so then they have to free themselves from themselves.
Story of my life right there.
Oh, I wouldn't know anything about it. Right? Yeah. So, having some experience in these things. But in reality, what happened was Exodus just wound up being a game we had to get done in 9 months. And as a result, script's due next week. And it's got to be executable in 9 months type of thing. And it wound up being a story. The team did a great job, so there's no baggage there. But it wound up being a story that was not what I planned on having as the second piece in the quintology. And so it sort of threw my intent of the big epic story, the 5-piece story that I wanted to tell. And when we made New and Tasty, we asked the audience, we said, if we succeed in this, what else would you want us to make? And they said, do the same thing to Exodus. I mean, they say, yeah, new content. We're like, well, we can't really afford new content. And then we said, but what would you like us to make? And they said, well, do the same thing to Exodus if you can do a good job with New and Tasty. And then we did a good job with New and Tasty, and it was successful. And I was like, shit, I kind of promised them we'd do Exodus, but I really want to change it. I really want to change it back to an original vision of what that story was supposed to be, and then the gameplay that would go with it. So we dove into it thinking we'd start doing a remake, and then we got some mechanics working. That are pretty wild stuff. And we went, okay, shit, we just dug our hole, and now we're building a whole brand new game that's based on a story about brew and addictions. And it will still take place with some of these facilities in concept, Soulstorm Brewery, Rupture.
A reimagining.
A reimagining. So it's a whole different take that is inspired by that original, story, so to speak, but it's getting back to what the original intent was. So it's actually part 2 of the quintology. But I want to be careful in saying that till it's out.
Okay.
Which I just kind of blew. But really, that's my intent, is that it really is that. And so far, so good. So fingers crossed. And we definitely took on a much bigger hit on cost and energy and time to try and make it happen. And it's interesting. This gets back to your original business stories in the beginning. So we had to ask ourselves, well, what's the risk and how do we execute and where do we fall out on this? And we decided that the biggest risk was not going fresher, cooler, more intense. Mm-hmm. That was a bigger risk. And we're not an entity that spreads its bets because we don't have enough bets to spread. So we got to make sure that what we bet on wins. And so it really has to be high quality. If you look at the Metacritic on the Oddworld games, it's consistently in the 80s. But you know how hard it is to make games, man. You really got to be committed to delivering as excellent as you can with losing all the sleep that it takes to get there. So that's what we're working on now. We really dug in deeper than we were expecting to. I think the audience will be really happy. Our job is a lot harder. I hope the audience will be happy. Our job's a lot harder. The game is going to cost more, and it's a big risk, but we got to make it great. And that's kind of brings us back to, if we can make it great, I think we can count on a 2x return. And anything above that would just be wonderful and keeps us in business longer and lets us to have more freedoms. But our ultimate sort of financial goals on it are relatively conservative, And it's kind of weird too, because we're building stuff that we're shipping 20 pounds of product in a market today where really you should be shipping 1 and fostering 1 pound of product into the audience, learning from the audience, refining on it. Really, the way free to play does it better, right? You don't build a AAA 20 pounds product and then dump it into the audience. You have something smaller, you're testing, you're learning, you're iterating faster. And if it hooks, if it catches, then you're really fueling it. And hopefully you understood enough of it that you know where it's going. So we're still building like that premium priced indie product. It comes in the box. It's not free to play. It's not going to have the sales potential of a hit free to play, but it's the safer bet for us at this time. But it's a lot of work for less returns. When we're honest to ourselves.
Right. But you're telling your story, you're saying what you want to say. And like we said earlier, 2X is a pretty good X, you know?
2X is not a bad X. If it was a house, you'd buy in a second, if you knew.
Yeah.
But you really have to keep that quality bar high. And I think you got to keep some surprises high. And you got to make people feel your love of the building of the product when they're playing it. And at the end of the day, it's got to be, all the highfalutin stuff, the philosophical stuff we were talking before that lets us go home and sleep at night, whatever gets us through the day. All that is really interesting until you don't have a good product that's good entertainment playing game, right? And then all those ideas didn't mean anything because you have something that no one wants. So it's got to be a good piece of what its original intent is, which is a great game. It's fun to play, and you can have fun whether you really digest it at deeper levels or not. And that's what it's got to be first. And then hopefully you can embed the layers that you want to make it deeper so that you have hopefully, you're hooking a fan base, a generation with some more memorable hooks. And then they hopefully support you, thereafter. And that's a lot of the good currency, the sort of human currency that we're riding on is a lot of people believe that, we actually do put our heart and soul in it, try to do a good job, try to respect them as a gamer, customer, player. And so far it's working, but I have no illusions that, I might go broke on this one, man. There's never any illusions, right? The longer you're in the business, the more the upsets can happen.
Well, you never know what's going to happen, but I think there's no way somebody could listen to this interview and not know that you're putting your heart and your soul into what you do.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Thanks a lot.